freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode number 445 of Gun Freedom Radio, where we engage, we educate, and we inform. We are brought to you by azfirearmsauctions.com, where you set the price on guns, ammo, and accessories. I am one of your hosts, Cheryl Todd.
And I'm the other guy, Dan Todd. Our theme today is who supervises the supervisors? Good question.
Good question.
Our guest today is Michelle Ugenti-Rita. Michelle is a native Arizonan who has served the Arizona legislature for 12 years in both the Arizona State House and the Arizona State Senate. In the 2024 election, she is campaigning for a seat in the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors.
Welcome to the show, Michelle.
So good to be here. Thank you.
I can't believe that you have served for over a decade, and this is the first time I have wrangled you in to be on this show.
I know, it was meant to be.
It was. So, serving for over a decade in the Arizona State Legislature on both sides, mind you, that has to have prepared you for several elected positions. What is it specifically about the Board of Supervisors that I think most of us don't even know enough about? What is it about that position that caused you to toss your hat in the ring?
So the Board of Supervisors is a 5-member board, and they run the county, Maricopa County. We have 15 counties in Arizona. This is the largest county in Arizona, but I think what's interesting is it's the 4th largest county in the United States of America.
That's wild.
It is, if you think about it, and there's only 5 people in charge of running it. Their main responsibility is setting the agenda and approving the budget and appropriating the budget for 40 departments, as well as the budget for all of the other county elected offices. So that's your recorder, county sheriff, county attorney, assessor. And as a legislator for 12 years, I can tell you that they are very aggressive in how the laws are created that affect them. They're in so many components of your life, and you don't even realize this massive layer of government that is spending your money wildly, that is controlling you, that is setting the agenda for transportation, for the courts, for elections. This is the county runs elections. And yet there's been very little oversight over the years, interest in following and holding the County Board of Supervisors accountable to the public. The press covers for them all the time by opting not to expose their votes and cover them in the same fashion and manner they do the legislator and our statewide. So for me, seeing them, and I had a first row seat for 12 years, seeing them operate without that level of transparency and being on the other side of the table, if you will, at the legislator, I have the experience to know where they're overstepping and what I would do to rein that in and make sure they're far more accountable to the people they purport to serve.
That is just wild what you just described, that it's just this like the best hidden secret out there. And why don't we know more? I mean, we need more civics classes clearly in schools, but it is just crazy to me. And as somebody that has been as involved in not even politics, like I have never run for office, but I know a lot of people and I interview a lot of people. I'm in the sphere, right? And for it to just be kind of this bubble out there that we have some awareness of, but really none, to understand the power that 5 people wield is actually a little bit mind-boggling. Now, is this a partisan? Do you have to declare which party you belong to when you run? Because like city councils generally, those kinds of things, school boards, people generally, they don't ever have to declare. I always ask because there tends to be, a common thread when it comes to protecting our gun rights, even on issues that aren't directly related to gun rights. But how about the Board of Supervisors? Is it partisan, nonpartisan?
Yeah, it's a great question. And that question kind of highlights how little people really have been able to pay attention to this office, but it is partisan. You run in a primary, and then the person who advances out of the primary goes to the general. I'm a staunch conservative, have been my entire life, and have run all my elections that way, and I vote that way. And so part of why I'm also running is the current supervisor that was appointed and I'm challenging behaves like a Democrat. And I know this district very well, and I know Maricopa County, very well. I'm a native, and like I said, I've served, that Scottsdale, that East Valley for many, many years. So it's completely out of step and out of touch. But what you are highlighting is they want you to think it's nonpartisan. They don't want to show their true colors, because there would be a stark contrast between their registration and then how they vote. So they all vote in a block, all 5 of them. There's 4 Republicans and one Democrat. They vote in a block all of the time. There's always a lot of people think and to some degree it's true, there's protection in numbers. They take very little testimony from the public. They're very aggressive toward public input. They constantly go into executive session. And this to me is indicative of someone, which is my opponent, but just the board in general, that doesn't want to have to answer for their votes, and doesn't want to have to behave partisan-like. But I don't see that as a negative. I don't like this negative connotation over partisanship, because your partisanship is about showing people and identifying with, the philosophical belief system that you align with. And I'm proud of my partisanship. Let's just put it that way. I don't like to hide it.
No, I understand that, because if it's based in a value system.
Correct.
But then, kind of like, why hide it then? And it does feel like it has been hidden.
Right, exactly. And that's because they want the best of both worlds. And that, that's not the best for the voting public and the residents, and the people of Arizona. You can't have the best of both worlds. When you believe in something, you have to fight for it, defend it, go after it, come up with an agenda to obtain it. But you've got a board of supervisors that's got a $5.3 billion budget, and they're more than happy to allow staff to run the day-to-day operations, to take a back seat to what's happening. These are the same people that allowed the Maricopa County Health Department to put out all of the recommendations for for the mandatory masks and the shutting down of our businesses, which is really just taking away your liberty. I think when we say shut down business, no, that's taking away your ability to earn a living. Those are your rights, and they were all too willing to just go with the flow, and do what was easy. And not stand up for the public, and not fight back, and not handle something like that in a more surgical, judicious way, but just, kind of run and hide, and let the inertia at the time, remember, was just everybody to lock down, take over.
Yeah.
And it shows you just how fragile and how precarious our rights are, just in a moment, can be taken from you.
Yes.
Yeah, and it also shows us that 5 people can control us in such a matter. I'm shocked that you said that there's 4 Republicans and 1 Democrat, because I would have told you there's 5 Democrat and 5 liberals, or 5 liberals. It's unbelievable to me how Maricopa County is changing.
Well, exactly. They behave like liberals. The term rhino, Republican in name only, is appropriate. And that's not to levy an insult. It's really to be descriptive.
Mhm.
They constantly show that they want big government. They support raising your taxes.
Mhm.
They want to grow the budget in a time where, you know, we know that people have been suffering under devastating, crushing inflation. They, as a conservative, that's the antithesis of what we believe in. We believe in empowering people with choice and freedom, not a nanny state approach. And honestly, these are just small steps toward socialism, in my opinion, where you have big government controlling every part of your life. And what's scary about the Board of Supervisors is nobody really sees it happening. They're doing it through their housing authority, environmental services. They're just slowly eroding your freedoms, making it their responsibility. And they get away with it. And that's why, just so you know, my race is in District 2, which is the east part of the East Valley, Scottsdale, Fountain Hills, Mesa, parts of Phoenix, parts of Tempe, Carefree. But in all of the other districts, there are challengers too. So this is a big momentum on all different fronts.
It is a huge election for the Board of Supervisors. We had Dr. Bob Branch on.
Oh, right, exactly.
And he would be in our district out here in the west part of the valley. And, you know, he has such a long line of life experience that I think really helps him to tap in and do a good job and make the changes appropriate. You have a long history of experience. And so this could really be a crossroads to take us back to the line that our founders originally put in place for us. So I'm very encouraged. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I just, you know, to me, it looks like it's just control. There's 5 people that want to control us. And the reason I believe that is because if they don't want you to know what they're voting on, we've got it. We've got you under control. We can take care of you. Don't question us. That's a terrible way to.
That takes me to my next question. You know, that most people had never heard of a Board of Supervisors, much less the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, before the 2020 election. And then suddenly every national news outlet was talking about it. And that's when I really started cluing in, like, wait, they do what? And how do they have that power? And who are these people? And the question, I guess, is how do we citizens, we voters, how do we better supervise the supervisors? What should we do in the future?
Well, I think showing up, calling the board member that's in your district, emailing them. As a legislator, I can tell you, I can immediately discern from a form email or, you know, an automated phone call and then a real person. And when it's a real person that reaches out, it has an impact. Because if you're good at your job and you care about what you do, when you get one email or one call or one person coming to committee to share their thoughts, you're thinking, oh gosh, that person represents how many that I'm not seeing or that aren't making a phone call or emailing. So it's very important. And I'm about like building layers too. So you start off there, you see what the response is, and you can kind of up your game, but you have to let them know you're watching them. They don't think you are. And honestly, they're not wrong. We haven't been. And to your point about 2020, and 2022, you know, they kind of came on the scene because of the way they mishandled our elections, and elections are run at the county level. And so people started asking, like, and I've been involved in this issue for over a decade, so I've been asking this many years prior, but it got to a larger groundswell in those election cycles because people were like, you can't run the day-to-day operation of elections. I mean, what are these long lines for? Why are you having printer problems in 2022? You know, why is the vote taking so long to count? Why don't we have the results? And these are basic questions, but they made the public feel that they were crazy for asking them. It's very gaslighting. It's to gaslight the public. And then you have this culpable media protecting them, acting like everything's fine, but it was their behavior, their inability to run the office smoothly, and then their reaction to the public asking very reasonable questions that started the attention. And hopefully people realize that you're going to get more of the same unless you change the makeup of the board, because they clearly aren't listening. They've told you to go pound sand.
That was what I kept feeling just in my gut, was there was this layer of arrogance. Like, how dare you?
Yeah.
You know, who are you to question us? We are the Board of Supervisors.
Right.
And so that's what really got them on my radar, is like, what about that says I'm a public servant? What about that says I am here to serve your needs as my constituent? Nothing about that said that to me. And that's when I started really, trying to pay better attention. And, the local guy out here, Clint Hickman, his family's got Hickman eggs, Hickman farms, all that. And, you want to love your neighbors and your fellow business person and that. And so I think I gave him and them way too much latitude, because I just kind of felt like, oh, well, we're all in this together. That old horrible phrase from, COVID. But, so he's going to care about the same things I care about. But then the face that I was seeing get revealed was absolutely not one that I could respect. And it's sad, honestly, because we are still in the West Valley. We are still neighbors. We are still going to see each other at events, and, we run in similar circles. But just because he's my neighbor, I still do get to hold him or you or anybody to the job that we've hired you to do. And I think too often we allow that kind of like, friendship thing to get in the way, instead of, we are business owners, so we love our staff members as human beings, but we still have to hold them to a standard. And we have had to let some of them go because they couldn't meet the standard, more training didn't help, whatever. And so it's like, we still love you as a human being, but you have to go fly and be free. You have to go serve somewhere else.
I mean, you're so right. And remember, this isn't personal, it's business, and we're in the business of freedom. So, if you're doing things to stand in the way, if you're an obstacle, then I'm sorry, I won't be able to support that if, from the voter perspective, and you're going to welcome, challengers. It's important to note they are feeling the pressure. You brought up Mr. Hickman, but there's another supervisor in the Central Phoenix area who's not elected to run for re-election. Mr. Hickman's not running for re-election. My guy just has not seen the writing on the wall. He's a little bit more stubborn, but that's all right. I'm going to take care of it on July 30th. But because they can't justify their decisions and what they've done. It's frankly a little cowardly. If you think that what you're doing is right, then stand before the people and explain it. My opponent has said no to every single debate, every single meet and greet, every single event, forum. You can't get him to come out. And that should be a very big red flag to people.
There's that arrogance, I think.
Yeah, I agree with it. I'm kind of amazed here. What I'm hearing is the 5 members who holds them, besides voters, who holds them accountable?
So their power is derived from the legislature. They should not be operating outside of the statutory confines of statute. But they do, because they do all the time. They take massive liberties. I have seen it time and time again as a legislator. They use taxpayer money to hire contract lobbyists. They've got their internal staff, and they lobby the legislature. They're very good at scaring other members to get them to support what they want. And unless you're going to sue, their posture is like, what are you going to do about it?
Right.
What are you going to do about it? And we've seen that with elections, particularly. You're not following the law. So what are you going to do about it?
So then the other question I have, so these 5 people that control our county, do they have private meetings with just the 5 of them and no one else is involved in that? And
So by law, you're not allowed to. That would violate the open meetings law, but they often, in my opinion, misuse and abuse executive session, which is a process that you're allowed to utilize to go into a meeting with the 5 of them and then talk, outside of public purview about issues. And it's supposed to be used for more legal things, but like what, they're masters at taking something and then, using it for things outside of its intended purpose. So they do that frequently, go into executive session where these conversations could be had in a public forum. They don't like accountability. Just recently, they changed their security protocols to limit testimony from the public, to mandate that a security personnel have to accompany a public member to the podium to speak. Very aggressive behavior that I think is used to intimidate and stifle involvement from the public and not welcome it. But it's really in line with their posture, which is like, you're asking me to justify something. And so, too, what they do with their agenda, they set their like 75, sometimes 130 agenda items, and they vote in big blocks all at once on multiple items. So there's very little oversight, very little questioning, and they allow staff to have a massive role, if not like literally the majority role in putting together these agendas, coming up with the direction of the county. And I want to take that back, because all that does is take power away from the public, because you've got these bureaucrats that are out of control, that are not accountable to the public. But you've got a board of supervisors that have abdicated their responsibility to the staff, and that's a big detriment to the voting population and to the residents of Maricopa County.
I don't like this. I mean, I really don't, because it's like, so you have a big company and you're on the board of supervisors and there's a bill that is going to affect, or a decision that's going to affect your business. So you go to the other 4 people privately and say, hey, I'll do this for you, you do this for me. And it doesn't serve the public well.
Well,
And it just really makes me angry.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we see the precedent that they have set.
Right.
And let's say that we get a Dr. Bob Branch out in my area, and we get a Michelle Ugenti-Rita. I mean, aren't you going to be tempted to use the power that's been placed in front of you? Like, how are you going to make it different? Like, are you going to, I don't know. What does that look like?
I have a record. So I have a 12-year record. I've picked my path. I'm very well defined, and I am not a go along to get along girl. And I say that because you could look back at my votes, and I've oftentimes been the only one standing, sometimes against my party, because my party has left our platform. And I'm not going to, and yeah, that happens too often. And I'm not going to condone it, because it's easier to go along with them. I've made countless floor speeches, even when, I'm on the losing side of a vote, to make a point. I expose things all the time. COVID was a big one for me, because I just found that to be so outrageous. And everybody hid, even Republicans. So it's that posture that I'm going to take to the board of supervisors. And sometimes things take time, but you would be surprised what like one person can do. You could be surprised with just a little sunshine can do. They're operating far too like happily. They don't think that anything can happen to them, and so they behave like there's not going to be a consequence. But if you get just one member on that board, that will have ripple effects throughout the entire county. I can tell you, I have fought them for so long on so many issues. They're very terrified of me. And in a good way. I mean, it's not like I'm going to come in and do I can cut through the BS. I've sat on appropriations for 11 years. I know budget just like they do. I know their rope-a-dope, their dance, their talking points, how they're going to pretend to sell me something. You know, I just know the routine so well that I will be able, my learning curve will be very, very short. And they won't be able to get away with what they have. Plus, I want to take control. I want to represent the public. I'm happy with taking on that mantle. And I have a soft spot for the underdog. And I always feel like the public's constantly the underdog. And I like delivering wins for them.
That's fantastic.
They deserve it.
Plus you're a mom, right? You have a vested interest in the future because you're raising 3 small humans that we're going to hand the keys to this state and this nation over to. And so I don't know why other public officials, like they sort of divorce themselves from, well, what I'm doing today really is ruining my child's future and my grandchildren's future. But, you know, it's good for me today, so I'm going to do it.
You're right. Like, not only are you elected, but you're also a vested taxpayer. You're raising your family here. You live here in the community. You know, I'm one of 5. I'm the oldest of 5. So I've got lots of nieces and nephews, brothers and sisters, parents. So you're personally invested. And then you're, of course, also invested on behalf of your voters. People, you know, I hate to say, but people are lazy. You could get a lot done. You'd be I'm very motivated, and I always have been, because you'd be surprised what you can do if you put a little elbow grease in it and not capitulate and stand down so early. You have to call the bully's bluff. And what I have found over the course of my you know, elected time period is that, you know, it's a lot of bark. And not a lot of, you know, and not a lot to back that up, but it can be scary when you go up against the establishment and a system that's already very ingrained, but it doesn't mean it's insurmountable. And so there's a lot of hope there. And I think you got to have that if you want to serve, because if you have a give up attitude, you know, you're definitely not going to get anything done.
Yeah. How 5 people agreed that mask was mandatory in Maricopa County amazes me. And then also how the election, you know, why can't we have an election that everybody, you know, that no one can question?
Right.
You
Well,
know,
somebody's always going to question
right,
something.
but it's obvious
Let's
stuff.
get as close to the
Right,
line as possible.
Right. And then the mask thing, you know, it was just terrible how they these 5 people just come up and said, okay, we're going to make everybody wear a mask. I thought that was the governor's job. I thought that's what he did, but I see that
You're right. And what they did, though, is the governor, because nobody wanted to own that decision. So the governor, you know, lobbed it down to the counties, and then the counties the county board of supervisors hid behind the Department of Health, the county health department. And so it was just like a hot potato, and nobody wanted to own saying, like, one, I think we should mask up. I mean, that's what the Democrats did. Or saying, you know what? No. I don't care what the Department of Health says. I have a common sense. I have a brain, and I think that this is abusive the way you're handling it. And I'm not going to support it. And it may be the only one. So I'm going to use my time at the board to expose you and ask questions and make you validate and justify what you're doing at a minimum. But everyone's scared.
Yeah.
Everyone is so scared, and it's easy to do the easy thing when it's easy, and there's no consequence. Very difficult to do the right thing when there is a consequence to doing the right thing. That's why most people don't do it. And I think COVID just highlighted that so amazingly. Just everyone fell in line way too quickly.
Easily. Yeah, easily.
and they were wrong.
They were wrong.
Yes.
Yeah, they were. And we're hearing more and more about it all the time. So we've been talking about how huge our county is. We've been talking about the budget. We've been talking about the number of departments that are impacted. So there are a lot of people who are saying that Maricopa County is just too big to trust to just so few people, 5 people. What do you think about that? Like, should there be something on the ballot? Should there be something that maybe it's more representative, the way that our electoral college is, or something like that? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, it is too big. You know, it's bigger than some states, which kind of, when you say it that way, you're like, wow, gosh, one county in Arizona is like bigger than, you know, quite a few states. So I think you could definitely, the public would be served best with more representation. So you could do something like, you know, with the legislative districts, you have 2 representatives in the House and 1 senator.
Mhm.
And that's just a much smaller district. They represent, you know, I don't know, 250,000 people. The Board of Supervisors is bigger than a congressional district, like a million. You'd have to change the law. The public would have to do it, or the legislature. But you could change it so there's more representation, so the public has more people to turn to reach out to talk to, when, you know, when they're involved at the county level. And then hopefully a larger representation would allow for the county to be more reflective of their particular districts. So I'm supportive of that.
Yeah, that is something we should
Makes
really
sense.
start talking about. I mean, it's probably too late for this particular election, but you know, the next one is a blink away, so something to think about. So I wanted to ask, why should gun owners, you know, we talk to a lot of people on this program that, you know, their main passion is their Second Amendment rights, the right to keep and bear arms. What is it about the Board of Supervisors that maybe we can put a fine point on it so that people that are listening that are sort of like, well, you know, if they don't really impact the Second Amendment,
Mhm.
then, you know, it really doesn't impact me personally. How can we help them understand why a gun owner should care who serves on the Board of Supervisors?
So I think that's a good question. And I think I think I'd answer it this way. So you can have, and we've seen this happen throughout the entire country, these Soros-backed county attorneys. You could have sheriffs. These are elected positions at the county. You could have rogue sheriffs who violate the Second Amendment, who don't uphold the Second Amendment and what it says in the Constitution. And the way that you could rein that in is the Board of Supervisors, who controls their budget, could start putting a lot of pressure with the purse. And let me tell you something. They very much care about their budget. They very much care about how they're getting funded and how much they're getting funded. And so that relationship right there is a powerful one. So you get these, like I said, these Soros-backed candidates who could win in Maricopa County, because Democrats have won frequently at the county level. But if they go out of step, and you have someone like me at the Board of Supervisors saying, well, there's a consequence to that. You've just you know, made it so I'm going to take a little bit of a deeper dive in your budget, and we'll see how you like that. There's leverage points there. Also, fundamentally, you have a bully pulpit. The county, like we talked about, is huge. You could use that and use your bully pulpit in that public forum to bring them in, start asking questions, start defending the Second Amendment, start holding those individuals accountable if they step out of line. Like I talked about earlier, you also have powerful associations, and you're constantly lobbying the legislator. You could go to them, highlight what's happening, ask them to change the law or bring awareness and attention to an issue. So you do have the ability to protect and defend the Second Amendment in instances where you have individuals that are stomping all over it.
Yeah. And then on the flip of that is, if we allow the wrong people to be elected, people that don't care about Second Amendment, then they can use all those same tools against us. And I think
That's exactly right. Turn a blind eye and allow things to happen that erode your Second Amendment.
Like elections.
Mhm.
elections for
I'm
sure.
that just slipped out. That wasn't me. That just slipped out.
What would you say over the 12 years that you've served? What has been your proudest moment or accomplishment or achievement?
You know, I think it's it's not necessarily a moment, but I think I'm very proud of the fact that I have kept my autonomy. that
Mhm.
it's so easy and there's so much pressure, almost an unbearable pressure to conform.
Mhm.
And in politics particularly, there's this intense desire for everyone to be the same. And I have, it's hard. It's hard to keep your individuality, your autonomy, and be someone that will vote their conscience and pay the price for doing that. Ride that wave when it's high, and get the love, but also hold on when it's low and when everybody thinks maybe you're doing the wrong thing. But when you have an ideology and a style, and when you believe something, you have to stay grounded. And in politics, it's very hard. So I think I'm most proud of being well-defined, of being someone that doesn't go along to get along, and has stuck by my conservative principles through thick and thin, and I won't get off it. And I can weather those storms, and that's built a thick skin, but I'm proud of it. I feel like I've earned it.
So that's good. And, you see like the Democratic Party, they have all gotten together
It's like
with
a
all
hive
this.
mind.
Yeah. And they're
People.
really making themselves look bad because I don't know how to put the words to it, but everybody's with all this woke stuff and everything else. They're afraid to fight it.
Mhm.
And by not fighting it, they're letting it happen. And look what's happened to the Democratic Party in the last 15 years.
Right. And again, it's that fear. It's so easy to just give away who you are and your principles. But it's that, proverbial camel's nose under the tent. But once you do that, it's easier and easier for people to take advantage of you. It becomes harder and harder for you to stick up for what you believe in. And, I have voted against Republican budgets that I think are bloated, that spend taxpayer money recklessly. I've repealed taxes that were passed by a Republican majority because that is not aligned with my philosophy. Low taxes, these are taxes that we didn't need. And and the Democrats do the same. Everyone capitulates. And then but it's almost impossible to regain that control once that happens. So it takes a lot of vigilance to, stand your ground.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Second Amendment term.
So, yeah. So exactly.
And you said you've been endorsed by some of the Second Amendment people, right?
I have a big list of endorsements, and I am challenging someone, like I said, who's appointed, who's already there. And I think that, thanks for bringing that up, speaks to my ability to bring in multiple shades of Republicans. And so I have Congressman David Schweikert, I have Senator Wendy Rogers, former Sheriff Joe Arpaio, congressional candidate Abe Hamadeh, a handful of other state representatives and senators, former AG Mark Brnovich, because it's not always about agreeing with someone. I think they recognize that I do what I say and I say what I'm going to do, and I have deliverables. And people are tired of talk.
Yeah.
And these are people that also have very strong Second Amendment records. I've been endorsed in the legislature by the NRA for many, many years.
Absolutely.
Voted against the red flag laws that were.
Thank you.
Yes. And I'll tell you, that was being pushed on us by Republicans. So it's another example of like having to stand your political ground and saying like, no, I understand the emotional component of this conversation, but this is not the right approach. In fact, this is a very dangerous approach, and it will be, no pun intended, but weaponized to erode the Second Amendment even further under the guise of, trying to identify people who could potentially do harm, which is impossible to find that lone wolf. And I remember getting called up to the governor's office to be lobbied to vote for that. And it was an easy no, but other Republicans did. And lots of Democrats obviously supported it. So I have that record.
I wish we didn't have labels. I wish we didn't have Republican, Democrat, all that. I wish we just believed in the Constitution, because there's that much just a tip of my finger of things that I agree with Democrats on.
Mhm.
There's a whole bunch I deal with Republicans on, but my main thing is conservative. But all of it is just the Constitution. Just follow the Constitution, we'll be fine,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
So
right. I agree. I mean, like, look, I mean, it's spelled out pretty clearly. But you realize that, like, to your point, you know, there's a lot of manipulation that happens, and I mean, the Democrats take an oath as well to defend the Constitution.
Yeah,
Yet they're
they don't
like,
act like it, or there's some
they got
other
their fingers,
constitution that
they got their fingers crossed in the back or something.
right, right.
So let me ask you this, because I know in my own life, the times that I grew the most and learned the most were times that I stubbed my toe the hardest. Talk to us about, you know, what has been maybe your hardest lesson as a leader, or your biggest disappointment that you weren't able to achieve, something like that.
You know, I'm a very optimistic kind of girl, so I don't look at failure the way I think most people look at failure. I don't even like that term. To me, when maybe you don't reach your goal, it's an answer, and it just means like not that way. So you go a different way.
Nice.
But I will say something that I learned very quickly down there, and I think I was a little bit naive when I first entered office in this one area, and it's not always merit-based what happens down at the legislature. So when I first got elected, I ran when I was 29 years old. You know, I had a little bit of like, but this idea is so great. How could you not like it? Like,
Right.
then you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not that clearly, it's not always an issue about the merits of something. There are personalities, there are multiple stakeholders involved that want something for multiple reasons. There's jealousy, a lot of jealousy about who gets to own an issue or sponsor an issue. There's jealousy around who comes up with an idea. So, you know, you realize that as much as you think, you know, it should be as simple as like, let's just look at this proposal, and didn't we all run on this platform? Then it doesn't always work out that way. So you got to find different ways to get the same result.
Absolutely. And I think that, you know, that experience, I think again, leans back into how are you going to interact with the other 4 board of supervisors, assuming you, expecting you win, to find the pathway forward, you know, just take the first no and cower under it. So I think that's great. So last question, and I feel like maybe we've already, you know, spelled this out, but you can put a fine point on it. What makes you uniquely qualified to hold one of the 5 seats in the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors?
Well, I am certainly the most qualified candidate in this race. My experience over the last 12 years sitting on a multitude of committees, chairing them. I was one of the youngest member to get a chair when I was first elected, taking the hard votes and passing bills where half of the people hate you and just a little bit more than half of the people love you. Those are very difficult bills to pass. That's been in the election arena, in reg reform, in healthcare, and this has allowed me to develop and have the level of experience to take on what I call the county cartel, and reshape it. I'm also very good at understanding what people need from me when I am trying to convince them to either vote, my way or follow my lead. I can bring people together. That's why I'm successful doing very difficult bills. And that prepares me. I also have weathered many political storms. I know what it's like to go up against the press. I know what it's like to, have good articles, but nasty articles. I know how to prioritize and use my attention, my time, and my resources in a way that is always geared to giving the voters results. And nobody outworks me. It's impossible. You give 110, I will give 120. You cannot outwork me. And I get a great amount of satisfaction being able to deliver for my constituency. That's a relationship that I nurture, I care about, and I'm protective of. That's why I campaign hard and aggressively. I take nothing for granted. Those attributes will serve me well as a board of supervisor, because you're going to have to shake it up, but and kind of tear it down a little bit so that you can build it up. People know that about me. I'm like I said, I'm well defined. I think that's why I have the level of endorsements that I do from all of the different electeds throughout that district and the state of Arizona. And while I've been in politics for 12 years, in some way, I'm just getting started.
Absolutely. Excellent answer. Tell folks how they can follow the work that you're doing.
Yes.
And we all know that campaigns run on people power and money power. So, if you want to tell folks how they can support your campaign.
Please, thank you so much. So it's electmichelle.com, very simple website, electmichelle.com. There I answer these emails. You can contact that campaign. That's going to go right to me and I can respond. You can request a yard sign. That's very, very helpful. People see those signs. It's like a personal endorsement. And you can click the donate button. And that helps me tremendously, because campaigns are expensive. This is a very big district. Those things go to help your advertising budget. Word of mouth. I mean, just saying my name. I think it's important to note here too, that early ballots go out July 3rd. So we really have a month. People are going to be voting. Wow. In 1 month. The majority of people vote by mail. Election day is July 30th, but people will start to vote the first week of July. So it's go time. But all of those things, certainly a donation, all of that adds up and it helps me build the momentum. The other thing you could do, contact my opponent and ask him to show up for a debate, because he keeps avoiding them.
I love it.
I want to have one. I want to show the voters the contrast and compare our records.
For sure. It is hard to go up against an incumbent, because, people go with that familiarity, right? Like, I don't know this person. I don't know what he does, but I know the name. So tick the box. So.
And remember, this is a person that came from New York, forgot to check his New York value system at the Arizona border, appointed, had no political experience. You were only appointed when you tell the people that are going to put you in office that you're going to go along to get along, that you're going to do what you're told. And that's exactly what he has done. And I don't believe he has earned the voters' respect and vote this next election cycle. And I would say that I have far more name ID than he has, because I have won 7 elections in this very district.
Fantastic.
Coming for you, Mr. Galvin.
That's right. Mr. Galvin, I love it. Well, thank you so much. I would take your passion, your drive, your strong backbone in the advocacy I do with Second Amendment any day. So since that's not the arena you're running for the Board of Supervisors, then we want you there. So thank you so much for all you're doing. And we will be talking to you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye. Michelle Ugenti-Rita, interesting lady. What a powerhouse, right?
Yeah.
Seriously, like, if I could have that passion as part of the Women for Gun Rights, where are the people like her that, that is their lane, is the Second Amendment, like mine? On the AZ CDL, the Arizona Citizen Defense League, like any of the boards that I serve on, that's that kind of passion and commitment to conservative, not even conservative, as you said, this guy,
right?
Constitutional values and principles. There have to be millions more.
Can I give some advice on the radio? The show here?
I don't know. I can always delete it out if I don't like it.
I hope you don't delete this, but my advice to everyone that's listening is, if you're happy with the Maricopa County the way it is right now, then vote the way that you vote. If you're unhappy with the way that the elections were and the way our money's being spent and all the other things, take all the people that are on there and take them off.
Mhm.
Vote for everyone that's not there now.
Yeah, but
Right?
don't make a lazy decision.
It's
here.
not a lazy.
Like, let's make
it's
sure
right.
that we're not just replacing lazy with lazy, bad with bad, arrogant with arrogant.
But
That's
we've
the
got to do
thing.
something, and we've got to give a message to the people that are screwing up
Yeah,
that they're fired.
absolutely.
You know, you mentioned that we have a company and we've had to let people go. That's a hard thing to do, to let people go. But what's even harder is to let an elected official go, because it takes votes to do that. You can't just say, you can't walk into somebody's office. I can't walk into the governor's office and say, you know what? You haven't been voting on gun bills. You're not following the Constitution. You got to go. You're fired. You take your stuff and get out of here. Wouldn't that be cool if we could do that?
It would be interesting.
But we can't do that. So how you fire them is you take them off the ballot.
That's a thing.
Yeah.
Vote, intelligently, be an informed voter. And she hit it key when she said, how do we supervise the supervisors? It really is about relationship. Not only do you need to know who all of your elected officials are at every single level, right? Your school boards, your city council, your mayor, your representatives, your state senators, like on and on and on, and your board of supervisors. They need to know who you are.
Yeah.
Right? They need to know who you are so they can serve you better. And they have at least cognitive dissonance in their mind, right? If they're about to vote against something that isn't in your best interest as their constituent. All right, we need to start wrapping up.
Yeah,
I
I'm
want.
thinking about going shooting this weekend,
Oh yeah,
but it's too hot.
is
Sweating.
it too hot and
I
sweaty?
can't get a grip.
Are you giving me a lead up to this great
I
little
can't get a
product?
grip on my shooting.
Locked In Grip is a
what's
liquid
that?
shooting sports chalk. It is made for shooters, by shooters, and it is this great new product that offers a no slip, better traction, and heightened connection grip to your firearm for safer. That's the thing. Like if you don't have a good solid grip on your firearm, you could be lacking in safety. So a safer, faster shooting experience. Go to lockedingrip.com, purchase some for you and your favorite shooting pal. And also, we're talking a lot about, America, right? American values, constitutional values. So, how often do we even see products that are proudly made in America? Well, there is a company that has a shopping network that is invitation only. I'm going to invite you, Dan and I are inviting you today to join this private invitation only shopping club that is helping our family and millions across this nation to cut the cord on those huge corporations that use our spending dollars against our own best interest, against our freedoms and our liberties. From laundry soap to skincare to delicious snacks. We always have a bag handy for in between shows on a break. We have these delicious snacks and even steaks and ground beef from Riverbend Ranch is part of this program. You can shop online as you need it, or what I like to do is I set my order and I forget it. I walk away and then you know what it does? It
Oh
shows
yeah,
up
I know.
like magic
It does.
right on my front porch, waiting for me. And I love it. The convenience is amazing. So,
So I have to say something about this. So I saw a thing on one of the Facebook posts about, wouldn't it be cool if the box stores had a search engine for things that were made in America?
wouldn't that be great?
And they can't do it. They're not doing it.
Mhm.
They're probably because they would be competing against themselves. But this company,
Mhm.
everything is made in America. You don't have to search, is this made in America?
Supporting
Supporting
American
America,
jobs
right.
on American soil, buying American made products. And here's how you do it. You go to patriothousehold.com/GFR for Gun Freedom Radio. We get a tiny little piece of every dollar that you spend to help the work that we do. The Second Amendment Foundation, who's out there fighting all of these lawsuits to protect the Second Amendment all across the nation, they get a small piece of every dollar you spend. patriothousehold.com/ GFR. If you want to go back and listen to any portion of this video or any of our videos, you can go to YouTube or GunStreamer, the smartphone app called OpsLens. And when you go there, please hit the notification and the subscribe. That tells these platforms that you value this information. I want to, and if you want to listen to the audio only version, go to our website, GunFreedomRadio.com, click the On Demand tab, and
you can binge listens to your heart content, darling.
And if you want to see photos and bios and links to all of our guests, click the guest tab. I just want to thank all of our amazing viewers and listeners. I want to thank our great guest today, Michelle Ugenti-Rita. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. It's your most valuable and finite commodity, and you spent it with us, and we thank you for that. All right, until next time, we are going to
pray for our nation.
We are going to
pray for our leaders.
What else are we going to do? Maybe the ones that we don't like. Are we still going to pray for them?
We're going to pray for the elections coming up.
Okay.
I'll compromise with you.
All right. I think we should especially pray for those leaders, elected officials out there that we're a little irritated.
Even the ones that are Newsoms.
Nicely done. And then it's time for us to go. So until next time, be good to each other. Have a great week, and God bless.
Bye-bye.